the FPL Live Lounge, guys. You join me today for my Game Week 3 team selection. Before we get into that, let's have a look how I got on last week. Now, in Game Week 2, it was a green arrow for me of about 1.2 million, up to around 3.7 million overall rank. Now, in Game Week 2, I did score 76 points, which I think was around average from the teams and scores I've seen across YouTube and Twitter at the moment. 76 definitely seems like a respectable score, although only a couple of my players returned. I was largely relying on Haaland, which you can see, 34 points, captaincy, and a slight regret in the back of my mind that I should have triple captained him. However, my one move going into this week was Robinson in for Kwanzaa, which did pay off instantly with a 7-pointer from Robinson thanks to the assist and 2 bonus points, with Kwanzaa then missing out through injury. Now, before we get onto my team, guys, get in those comments, let me know your scores. How did you get on? Did you triple captain Haaland? Did you captain Salah? Or where do you stand on that debate? Okay, so let's get straight into the team. Dean Henderson, another 1-pointer. That makes it back-to-back 1-pointers. At least he is consistent. Consistently rubbish, but consistent nonetheless. I can't see me changing my goalkeeper anytime soon until a wild card, which could potentially be this week, depending on how the rest of the week falls and what happens in the transfer window. But certainly Dean Henderson is here to stay for the time being, unless I pull the trigger on that wild card. Then my starting 3 defenders were Anthony Robinson with 7 points, as I mentioned, thanks to an assist and 2 bonus points. Pedro Porro with one of those rare clean sheets for Spurs, nice 6-pointer, no bonus and no attacking returns this week. Hopefully them attacking returns come back in Game Week 3 for Porro. He does play Newcastle away and I'm not expecting much of a clean sheet there. I am expecting Newcastle to stick a few goals past Spurs after in the last 2 games they have scored 10 goals combined in those 2 home fixtures against Spurs. And then my final starting defender was Lewis Hall, a 1-pointer cameo off the bench. Now, unfortunately, Lewis Hall is now a problem for this team. I am lucky enough to have Kwanzaa on my bench, who may be able to keep that fire at bay for a couple of weeks, but he is now a problem and a transfer waiting to happen in my side. So Lewis Hall is definitely on the chopping block. And also, I just don't think that he's going to get that place back anytime soon, and if he does, I can see it rotating frequently with Lloyd Kelly. So yeah, he's definitely on the way out of this team, just a matter of when, not if, now for Lewis Hall. Now let's have a little look at these midfielders. So first off, we've got Saka, 6-pointer, Mr. Consistent, never lets you down, 6 points, an assist, clean sheet, and 2 points for reaching over the 60 minutes. Great pick, no complaints. Doesn't seem to be going anywhere at the moment in this side. He is a set and forget really for me at the moment. Moving on to that man indeed, Christopher Nkunku. He is one of the most transferred out players this week, and rightfully so. He was benched last week after starting in midweek in the Europa League. He got, I think, around 10 minutes off the bench for Chelsea after they'd scored 6 goals, which was fantastic as an Nkunku owner, because if you'd have told me at the start of the week Chelsea had scored 6, I'd have been looking for an Nkunku brace, maybe a hat-trick, maybe even a hat-trick of assists to go alongside that as well. But no, just a 1-pointer, 10 minutes off the bench, and utterly disappointing really. He is leaving my side this week, without doubt. Now on to Morgan Rogers. He is one of the most transferred in players for Nkunku. A lot of people who didn't have him before are now switching from Nkunku down to Rogers and banking that £1.5 million difference between the two of them, which is nice to add for some budgets. I did have him tucked away on my bench in Game Week 1 and he came in for Solanke in this game week for me. He looked fantastic against Arsenal, ran the show in midfield. Unfortunately, that didn't translate into FPL points, but the fixtures do get easier for Rodgers, so hopefully we see some returns in the next couple of game weeks. Now on to Bruno Fernandes. While it does pain me to have a Man United midfielder in my side, he is currently creating an XG of over 1 a game, so this man should be delivering FPL returns. He just isn't, and I think I was very unlucky at the weekend not to get an assist. While Bruno does seem to be an increasing problem in this team, he is one of the lesser problems, so he will be staying for the time being, and we'll be looking ahead to that Liverpool home fixture for Bruno. Now on to Luis Diaz. This man is flying so far this season. He looked great in Game Week 1, I think with an XGI of over 0.8, so really could have come away with 1 if not 2 returns during that game. And then in Game Week 2 he delivered with a goal and assist, 3 bonus, and just a really good all-round performance from Diaz. I do think I have said throughout pre-season that he is going to nail down that left wing spot. I feel he really suits the slot system in terms of his directness, and hopefully that would boost his return. Also, with him being a Liverpool player, I did have to have one in there, and he was my man of choice. So while he's still returning, he's definitely going to stay in my team. Liverpool have now got maybe 6 attackers that can play those front 3 positions, so it's definitely not going to get any easier in terms of minutes. And maybe in a couple of weeks, similar to Cole Palmer in that Chelsea side, Mohamed Salah will be the only option in that Liverpool attack due to his minutes being nailed. I still see him being a 90-minute man or the best part of going forward. So yeah, one to watch, but Diaz will be staying. Now on to the attack. So Alexander Isak is stinking up this team in a front 2, but as I mentioned with Porro before, Isak plays Tottenham at home, and in the last 2 fixtures they've stuck 10 past them. So I do fancy Newcastle in this game to carry on that form, and hopefully Isak will be at the centre of that. So he will be staying in the team for this week and for the next few weeks moving forward, pending any wildcard decisions that I may or may not make. Depends how trigger happy I get towards the end of the week. And then finally on to the man that was carrying this team all week. Really good game for Haaland, obviously a hat-trick. It looked like Ipswich were in trouble as soon as they scored. It looked like they'd awoken a beast, and when City went 3-1 up, that was it. It was game over. We didn't really see much more from Ipswich throughout the game, and City obviously went on to score a 4th, but no doubt this man carried my team this weekend. So yeah, glad to have him. He'll be staying also for the foreseeable. While City's fixtures are tricky for the next couple of weeks, I think he is the best captain in some of those weeks, and from game week 6 City do really start to see some good fixtures for a prolonged period of time. So Haaland will continue to stay in my team, and with no replacement in there to reduce his minutes now Alvarez is gone, I think he is nailed, especially in the Premier League. And on the bench we have Bentley at Wolves, who is my 4 million goalkeeper, obviously not expected to get any minutes. Solanke, who was injured and missed out this week, but could potentially be back against Newcastle. If he is, there is a chance that I do bring him in, depending on the news we get from Ange, but more than likely he will be out until after the international break. We've got Ezri Konsa with a 1-pointer against Arsenal, and as I mentioned with Rodgers, Villa looked really good for large portions of that game. As I mentioned with Rodgers earlier, Villa were really good for large spells of the game. Unfortunately no returns for their players last week, but he is definitely one to keep an eye on with the fixture swing for Villa. And I do think Leicester away at the weekend is a really good opportunity for Villa to get their first clean sheet of the season, so Ezri Konsa will be coming into my side for game week 3. And then Ben Johnson, who got an unlikely assist against Manchester City, a 3-pointer for him. Unfortunately he was 3rd on my bench and never looked like coming on. So now on to my game week 3 side, and in goal I've got Dean Henderson. While he's not very good, and I don't think he's going to return many FPL points, I haven't got the transfers to get rid of him, so he will be staying until something happens, whether it be a wild card or I end up rolling 2, 3, maybe 4 transfers before I'm willing to use one on a goalkeeper. In defence we've got Robinson with Ipswich away. I think that will be a high scoring affair. Ipswich given really their first opportunity to have a crack at Premier League opposition, obviously playing Liverpool and City in their first 2 games. They were unlikely to really impose themselves on those teams for significant periods of time, so Fulham should be a good test for them at the weekend. I think it'd be unlikely for Robinson to keep a clean sheet in this game. Hopefully the attacking returns continue. Now Pedro Porro, as I've mentioned a number of times in this video, I don't fancy a Spurs clean sheet in this game. However, Porro is always one for an attacking return. We've seen some of the positions he's been taking up, and he's been playing a number 10. He's been in that number 9. His goal in the first game of the season was reminiscent of a great number 9, getting in the box and getting on the end of a cross, and really just positions we haven't seen too many fullbacks being taken up in the Premier League. So yeah, he'll be starting regardless for me, despite the fact that I do think Newcastle will probably score 1 if not 2 or more goals in that game. And then Konsa, I do think Konsa's probably my best chance at a clean sheet this week against Leicester away. No disrespect to Leicester, I would fancy Villa to be able to keep a clean sheet in this game, hopefully get the win, and we might see a couple of bonus points if Villa do keep a clean sheet for Konsa. Fingers crossed, because I think this might be the weekend he's carrying my defence. And then on the bench we've got Lewis Hall at home to Tottenham, who I think has lost his place to Lloyd Kelly. And then third on the bench we've got Ben Johnson at home to Fulham. Unlikely to come on or play any part in my squad this week, but I do think he may have lost his place. Ipswich have got a few options in those full-back/wing-back positions, and onto the midfield as we go. So my midfield this week is a 5-man midfield, and it consists of Saka at home to Brighton, as mentioned, Mr. Consistent. Look forward to starting him every week and watching Arsenal, because this man just continues to deliver, and hopefully this season he can keep up with the likes of Salah and Haaland and really reach into them echelons of being a top premium asset in the game. Second in midfield is Emile Smith-Rowe. Now he is my free transfer this week. I did bring him in for Christopher Nkunku before the price changes, so I have currently got 1 million in the bank. My reasons for that are, I think he was the best option. It saves me some money, but also I did make that move in mind that if I do decide to wildcard, that 0.2 million that was kind of saved when making that transfer early could come in handy if I do decide to press the trigger on the wildcard button this week. So yeah, he was the most likely free transfer, so I made that early, and we'll see what happens in the rest of the week. Rodgers against Leicester away, again similar to Konza, played really well against Arsenal, and fancy them against a lower quality opposition in Leicester. I do think there'll be goals for Villa in this game, so Rodgers will hopefully be in the thick of that action and get his first FPL return of the season. Fernandes, he's got to start because I haven't really got anyone else to start. I don't like the fixture at all, Liverpool at home. I think Man United might struggle to get to grips with this Liverpool side the way they've started the season, but he is in there for minutes, and if United do somehow get a penalty at Old Trafford, which would be no shock to anyone, then he will be the man to step up and take it, and I would fancy him to score it. So he's in there on the basis that he might get a lucky return and that I've got no one else to play that's nailed on to start. So yeah, we roll with Bruno Fernandes, especially in a game against Liverpool when I'm not a big fan of starting him. And then onto the opposite side of that coin, so I've also got Luis Diaz as my 5th man in midfield away at Manchester United. Now again, I think the Liverpool front three will continue to progress in this game and really gel. We've seen already returns for Salah, Diaz and Jota in the first 2 games, so I don't think that's likely to stop in this game. Hopefully Diaz is on the right side of that and does come away with another 1 or 2 returns in that game. Now from an FPL point of view, I'd probably rather this game be 2-3 all, maybe Liverpool get a high scoring win, a 4-3 or a 3-2 or something like that, where both of these players can return. But with my Liverpool hat on, I've got to firmly say that I do think Liverpool will be comfortable in this game, and it's unlikely for a Bruno return. But let's say this is football and anything could happen. Now let's take a look at my 3 forwards. So I'm going to start on the bench. We've got Dominic Solanke away at Newcastle. He is my first sub purely because there is maybe a glimmer that Ange gives us some good news that he can play some minutes this week. If we do get a really positive update from Ange that he may start, I may start him ahead of Bruno Fernandes and bench Fernandes. That's the reason Solanke's in that first position on my bench. So yeah, he is still a major doubt and probably unlikely to be back for the game against Newcastle, but I'm still holding out hope that I don't have to start Bruno Fernandes against Liverpool. And then my 2 starting forwards at the minute are Alexander Isak against Tottenham, who I've mentioned many times that I fancy to get returns against that Tottenham defence, which didn't look great in the first game, but then looked a little bit more solid against the woeful Everton side. But I do think Isak can do the business against them. And then Captain Fantastic, Mr. Erling Haaland away at West Ham. Do think this is a really nice fixture for Haaland. Could see him coming away with 1, if not 2 returns in this game, which would kind of be what we need for that 15 million price tag to be justified. And hopefully we can just keep them green arrows going. Now just a reminder of my transfer this week. It was Nkunku to Smith-Rowe. I did that on Sunday or Monday night before the price changes, so I did get Smith-Rowe at 5.5 and did sell Nkunku at 6.5, so I have now got 1 million in the bank tucked away for any future transfers. I'm not completely set that this will be the team for the weekend. I could wildcard. I do think there are a number of issues in this team. Now I do think this team could deserve a wildcard. There are a few issues in there. I think Henderson's a bit of an issue. The defence is looking really weak at the moment, obviously despite the returns from Robinson and Porro. I do think I am probably an Arsenal defender and a Liverpool defender short at the moment. However, I am just kind of holding out hope that those teams with some tricky fixtures coming up, that we see Arsenal and Liverpool potentially concede some goals and me not get killed by their ownership. But that would definitely be where I'm looking at with a wild card. And then in midfield, now Fernandes may be the only problem in midfield. However, I do think the three attackers of Solanke, Isak and Haaland maybe structurally isn't the best way to go, and having that second premium midfielder and dropping Solanke or Isak down to a João Pedro or someone around that £6 million price tag will probably better serve me going into the weeks coming up, especially with Brighton's good fixtures and João Pedro looking nailed at the minute. However, in a couple of weeks, if I can roll for 1 or 2 weeks, then I can certainly make those transfers looking into kind of game week 4 and 5. So while I think this team could be wildcarded, I think I'm maybe 2 or 3 weeks away from kind of being where the wildcard teams would end up in terms of Arsenal players and City players looking at their fixture swing in game week 6. So yeah, really toying with it at the moment. I'm going to wait and see if any big transfers happen, anything that could impact FPL, especially with the news that Ivan Toney could end up at Chelsea, Chiesa could end up at Liverpool, and Sterling and Sancho could end up swapping Man United for Chelsea and the opposite way. So some really interesting transfers still to come that could impact FPL. If you've got any advice, get in the comments. Does this team need a wild card? Could I deal with it maybe with a points hit? Do I take a -4 and -8 to make those transfers now? Or do I sit on the team and kind of be a bit more patient, wait for those free transfers to come in? As I mentioned, get in the comments, give me your advice, let me know your dilemmas. Are you wildcarding this week? And if you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like, leave a comment below. Feedback is always welcome. Fairly new to the content game, so feel free to leave us some comments, some feedback for the videos. Let me know what type of content you would like to see. And then also, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you again soon.